like for you as fathers in particular to embrace the idea that therapy is great and we all need support in that way, because I think what happens is it gives our students tools. I'll leave you with this one thought in schools. There was one student who, black male, started to get therapy, and he shared that his therapist gave him some tools to process when he was getting angry. So he had certain triggers, and he didn't realize what those triggers were. And so the therapist helped him figure out what those triggers were. And when he did, what she gave him were some tools to breathe properly and to count, and small things that can help you calm down, control your breathing, and think about what you're doing in the moment so that you don't act. Because what happens is those emotions get high and then you start fighting. So I think in schools, that's one of the most important things for us. That's important because kids can't get to AP calculus if they're struggling with what's going on in their heads. So that's one way.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. All right, our next question is going to go to Mr. Reggie Smith. How can we encourage open and honest conversations about mental health within Black families and communities? How can we encourage open and honest conversations about mental health within the Black community?
We can actually encourage open and honest conversation by speaking with our children. We have to actually speak with them. We have to talk to them on their level sometimes. We can't fuss at them. We can't yell at them. We can't curse at them. We have to actually sit down and talk to them and say, hey, what's really going on? And another way of doing it, I think, is to relate to them, empathize. I've been there. I've been through it. I've done everything that you're going through, all of it. I've done it already. This is what happened to me as a result of it, and you don't have to go down that path. We can choose something different for you. It's a different way. So there's a lot of ways of doing it, but an honest conversation is by being honest with your kids. We always present, we always have a shield with our kids, and we present ourselves as upstanding person. We don't tell them what we actually did. If we talk to them about what we've been through and the mistakes that we made, then they'll know that we're human too, and they'll candidly talk to us. They'll open up a little more. I have to tell my son sometimes, hey, I've done the drugs. I've been to prison. I'm 50 years old now. I went through this to get here. You don't have to take that path. You can go this way, but this is what I did. I don't want to come to you like, I go to work every day now. I make this money, I got this, I drive this, and I've always been that way. So then they think they have a standard to uphold, or they have to hide what they really feel or what they're doing. If you tell them I was once here and now I'm here, so you don't have to be down here, you can jump straight up here by avoiding it.
Thank you for that. Our next one is going to go to, do you all hear me? Our next one is going to go to Mr. Marcus Craven. What are some of the unique mental health challenges that Black men and youth face, and how do they differ from those experienced by other demographics? So again, what are some of the unique mental health challenges that Black men and youth face, and how do they differ from those experienced by other demographics?
Great question. All right, let me explain a little bit about where I come from. And I don't mean location, I mean as a Black man, which is funny because if you hadn't noticed, I'm not the darkest dude up here, right? And so I'm born in East St. Louis, born and raised in East St. Louis. My father was from the deep South Alabama. So if you know anything about Southern dads, they tell you to pull your pants down before they whoop you. So I understood, I had both parents in the household, but I come from the background of finance. I did not go to college for finance, y'all. I went to play football and run track. I'm from here, I'm from St. Louis, born and raised, Parkway North, and I ran a 4.38 40, but I didn't just tear one of my ACLs, I tore both of them. And these athletes right here can tell you need those when you're playing sports. So that was motivation for me to graduate. But we never had conversations about money sitting at the dinner table. So I had to learn this stuff for me. Can you all think of any situation that deals with mental health and how money has an impact on that? Think about divorces. Think about husband and wives arguing. Think about you, as he just mentioned, as a black man. If you lose your job, you're worried about, how am I putting food on the table? I've been there. I've been in a situation where I got a $20 bill and I'm trying to decide, do I put 10 in the cart for gas and do I use the other 10 for food? So think about what that does to you mentally. When we talk about mental health, some of this stuff may not be direct impact, but indirectly, these things, depression, stress, all those things come into play. And my own story is, I've been through that, and as he just mentioned, talking to your kids, how many of you ever said something to somebody and immediately regretted it? Because if you're having a bad day, sometimes you might snap at your kids. It's not their fault. So what I had to start doing to program my own mind is start using the things that we've been taught. And everyone in this room has been taught what to do. Who's ever heard the phrase, knowledge is power? Raise your hand. That's the biggest lie you've ever been taught in your life. If you have all the knowledge in the world, like you literally know everything about everything, but you don't use it, how powerful are you? Knowledge is not power, it's potential power. Application of knowledge is power. So what I did was I said every morning when I wake up, no matter if I'm having a good day or bad day, smile at your kids. Because their whole day is going to be based on that first interaction with you in the morning. So make sure they walk out of that door going to school or whatever with a smile on their face. Make sure they have a good attitude, make sure they're fine. Now, it's up to you to deal with what you have to deal with. So those are some things that are unique. And as you all know, when it comes to money, there are some distinct differences between our community and other communities, the white community and etc. And that's what I learned being in the industry. I learned it immediately that there are tremendous differences with Black America and white America. Unfortunately, what we don't understand, do you all realize we earned $1.7 trillion last year, Black America? If we were our own country, we'd be the 15th richest country in the world. But what do we do with our money? Cars, clothes, electronics, fast food, out the door. We spent, of that 1.7 trillion, we spent 1.3 last year. What if we learned to save 1% of that money? Just a penny out of every dollar. That's 13 billion a year we could put back into our communities. Now, what if we get really good and every time we earn a dollar, we save a dime? 10%. That's $130 billion a year we could put back into our own communities. We don't need stimulus packages from them folks. We got $130 billion a year just sitting there waiting on us to do something with it. So those are the differences between Black culture and other cultures is they take the time to save money, do things. And here's what shocked me. I had a client that had about $10 million net worth. Do you know what he cared about? His kids. That's all he cared about. Is this enough for my kids? And I'm thinking, that should be enough. But when I deal with us, I'm trying to explain to a lady $5,000 isn't even enough to pay for your funeral. You might have an arm sticking out the dirt because it wasn't enough money to put you deep enough. But we have to start thinking about what are we going to do, not for ourselves, but for our next generations. If we want to get our kids out of these bad neighborhoods, guess what you should do? Leave them $500,000 in life insurance. But if I walk around this room and ask how many of you are carrying $500,000, $2 million policies? Nope. That's what we need to do. That's what they do. And it doesn't take a lot of money to do some of the things that we're going to discuss. I'm going to do a breakout session on financial literacy. That's what I do. I've done workshops at over 50 HBCUs since '09 for over 100,000 Black students. That's what we have to start doing is teaching ourselves, educating us, so that of all the other things we have to worry about being Black in America, make sure money is not an issue.
Thank you, Craig. Test, test. Can you hear me? All right, so, Mr. Jolly, you up?
You up, man.
What role does systematic racism play in mental health disparities, and how can we address this issue effectively?
That's a deep question. Can you hear me okay? Group? Yeah, so again, let me start. War Eagle Roll Tide. You said from Alabama, Mr. Marcus. I gotta go Tide. From Alabama as well. It does not work. I was asking if he was War Eagle Roll Tide. For those from Alabama, I choose Auburn. He just chose Bama. But, you know, it's all right. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation. In terms of the question, I'll give a little bit about my identity. So my name's Ndwale. Most people think I'm African, but the name it means God brought me. My dad's from Dominica and my mom's from Jamaica. They're both from the Caribbean, immigrated here, and I was born in the U.S. And I was mostly raised in Auburn and Birmingham, Alabama. And my dad, he's an interesting guy, right? So he was up before me and always in the yard or doing something around the house, so I had no excuse. So how many kids, and if you got a lot of kids in here, my dad was always out working. And the expectation was that I followed him. And so that's been baked inside me since I was little, but that's not ever enough because there are systems at play that present barriers to you being well and healthy. And it starts early. It starts early. My son is 10. And already at the age of 10, he's been kicked out of 2 schools. 2. Kindergarten. Kindergarten. How you kick a kindergartner out of school? For something as simple as he's having trouble concentrating. He didn't know. He's a 5-year-old kid. But these are the systems. When I was in 7th grade, they put me in remedial. I'm a math person too. I'm acing the standardized test, 90 percentile, 95 percentile, and they put me in remedial math. These are the systems. They're designed to track you, put you in places you're not supposed to be, prevent you from being your best self. So I'm talking to the kids in the room. So you may not understand what's happening, but I felt it as a 12-year-old kid. I'm sure my son at 10-year-old, he didn't understand why in the middle of the school year he had to be moved again, twice. He's fine now. He's in perfect school, understands him and recognizes him as a black boy who's just trying to learn and do the best that he can, right? These are systems, so you keep going. Now you're adults. Now I'm talking to the dads in the room. Whether you went to college or whether you're working, whether you're on the job, whether you, like yesterday I was at the art museum at the hip hop culture exhibit, still people following you around, making you think you're less than when you're supposed to be in those spaces, preventing you from doing the work you're supposed to do. These are the systems at play, whether it's in the financial sector, right? Whether it's in the educational sector, whatever line of work you're in, or whatever part of community you are in, the policies and practices are at play every day trying to prevent you from being your best self. So when you come to the data, so I'm in healthcare, so I help run a network of healthcare providers who are providing services not only to young black youth, but adults as well. And the data says, it's clear, we're overly diagnosed with schizophrenia, like severe mental illness disorders. I said overly diagnosed, why? Because of racism in community. So they're saying we're crazy. No, we're not crazy. We're feeling what we're seeing and experiencing from the time my son is 5 years old till I'm 12 till you are where you are today as an adult, right? But then we're underdiagnosed for mood disorders like anxiety and depression, which are real. And you say, well, why? So are we blaming us for not being in those spaces? Or are we taking the time to understand why are we not engaged in healthcare? Because he said it himself. He wanted somebody who could understand him and look like him in that space, but yet we only make 4% of psychologists in the profession. So try to find them. It's hard to find them. Why? Because maybe I went into remedial math and never made it out of that, never made it to college, even though I always had the talent. Because the systems are always at play. And you have to see it, you have to feel it, you have to understand it, and you have to overcome it. Right? Not just within ourselves, but we also have to make sure that the people that are responsible or in privilege or in power know and understand who we are so they can begin to do the work to change the system so we can thrive and be well. When we see a flower that doesn't bloom, do we fix the flower? We fix the environment in which it grows. You don't pour water on the flower. You make sure it gets enough sunlight. It's the environment that's not allowing us to bloom. And we need to stop blaming the flower and start holding those who are responsible for cultivating the soil and the environment so we can all blossom and be our best selves. And so in the work that I do, I challenge challenge everyone involved, not just the provider community, but the educators, the hospital systems, everyone to think about, are we going to undo the practices and the policies that's continuing to suppress us from growing and being well in community? So that's my passion. And I challenge the kids in the environment, when you see something or feel something, when your classmates tell you you shouldn't do something, or your teacher says you're not bright enough, you are. You are. You're worth it.
to say something quickly because I want to make sure all the brothers get an opportunity to speak, and just something in reference to what Mr. Jolly just said. You know, I'm an expert when it comes to education. I've done this for 30 years. So you want me on your team when it comes to educating children, especially black children. I've done it for a long time. I'm in classes often. I was in many classes this week. And to your point, I want to make sure we're on the same page about our responsibility to our young black boys. It may sound far-fetched for a 5-year-old to get suspended from school, and I have a black son, so my aim is to keep our babies here. But let me tell you something, we have a responsibility as black men, whether it's our children or not, they're our children. We have a responsibility to them when they come to school. So putting a 5-year-old out of school is probably ludicrous. However, when you have 5 or 6 kids in a class of 25 kids and 5 of them don't know how to regulate, as Mr. Melendez said earlier, and that teacher is trying to deliver the instruction, it's virtually impossible. What am I saying? We need more resources in classrooms that have our babies who come to us who don't have those skills to know how to regulate. And some of that happens because they don't get early education. That's why pre-K and early ed is so important, because kids have to know how to regulate, how to negotiate, how to play, how to get along with each other. Because when a teacher is teaching, leave me alone, shut up, you ugly. You know, those are the kinds of things that are being spouted out of their mouths when they're in classes to learn how to read. So if they haven't been taught how to regulate, when it's time to get the academic parts, they don't get it. And what happens? They keep growing, and we keep passing them along. And we wonder why when a child gets to 6th grade, they can't read. So let me give you a little bit of hope. I'm so passionate about this that I'm 30 years in this thing, and I've never felt more hope today than I do now. Let me tell you why. Our children have to learn how, and this is a math teacher saying this, our children have to learn how to read well early. Some of you may struggle with reading. The system has been broken because we haven't had the right stuff in front of our kids early. There's this whole debacle in America around whole language versus phonics. I learned how to read through phonics, meaning I look at a letter, can identify the letter, the sound that goes with that letter, how to decode a word, how to break it apart. So when I open a book up, I know how to attack the words on the page of a book. And for the last 7 years, I've been here 9 years, so I feel responsible for some of this, but I didn't know. But when I found out, we started doing something different. Mr. Tyson came in, I saw him somewhere, he's one of our board members. Jamal Bailey's one of our board members as well, they're here now. And let me tell you something, we've adopted a new curriculum because our babies in kindergarten need those skills. So some of the stuff we're talking about, when they're in kindergarten and 1st grade, and they're in class, many times they're frustrated in 1st and 2nd grade in particular because they may have been given the opportunity to get the skills and they haven't gotten them. Mostly kindergartens don't know how to regulate because they haven't learned how to play yet. And play is important. And the children, and how do you even get that? You get that through early education. Most of the teachers in America are white women. But white women can teach our black boys. Don't say they can't, because they can. If they're willing to learn and do what they need to support them. Now, yeah, it's great to have a black teacher. The teachers who taught me well, so I did AP Calculus well, were white women. It has nothing to do with race. It has everything to do with conditions. So when we hear people talking about kids getting suspended from school in kindergarten, I can see it's possible, but we've got to have the right structures in place so that we don't put our babies out. Because what are you gonna do at home? You're already 5 years old. We've got to have the right resources. That's why we need men that look like these brothers up here and like you out there to be in our schools. Because when I walk in a classroom, I went into that classroom, and I'm in there just to know who I am. I went into that classroom and they calmed down because for what I went in, I was looking like I was all y'all daddy. Because we even had this foolishness in here. I grew up, black women raised me. And I was taught how to act when I went to school. They need that sometimes just to know first that you gotta have a level of authority, but you also gotta have a measure of love. Kids need to know you love them. And if I'm being stern, it's because, boy, I don't want you out here on these streets when you get older, right? So I had to say that because sometimes I was on the news just this week, you know, with a mama and a dad who were upset by the fact that their children, their son didn't get reading wells. And I own the responsibility as the lead teacher. But we have a responsibility to our community to make sure our children know how to read well early. Don't let your child leave second grade and it's not on grade level. In fact, don't let them leave kindergarten and they're not on grade level. So I think that's a big part of the mental health problem we're having because we struggle with literacy.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Our next question. Our next question is going to go to Mr. Myra McGee. How can we promote self-care and self-compassion as important tools for mental well-being among Black men and youth? Again, how can we promote self-care and self-compassion as important tools for mental well-being among Black men and youth?
That's a perfect question for me because I grew up as one of those kids in the Black community. It's okay to bag on each other, roast each other, and it's like, at some point, it's just okay, but I struggle with it so much to where you might just be saying, oh, you Black and you got big ears. I'm going home, I'm looking in the mirror like, I'm straight ugly, like, and I started to do those ugly things that I felt like this is who I am. And somebody might have just been joking and like, oh, okay, it's just cracking jokes. But we have to understand and make it okay to be yourself. Because for me, for a long time, I did a lot of the stuff that I was doing just to fit in. Because the stuff that I wanted to do wasn't cool. It would exclude me. So if I'm not doing this, or if I'm not on this team, or I'm not listening to this music, then I'm not Black enough. And the opposite of my man's over there, I probably am the darkest person up here. For you to tell me that I'm not Black enough because, you know, of some mental health stuff, or because I'm different, that's not cool. And the way to promote that is to talk to your children and let them know it's okay to be different. It's okay to be you. It's okay to like this over here. And a lot of times, it's a stigma that's out here that I'm not going to be liked, or I'm going to be treated differently. And once you get treated differently, that makes you feel a certain type of way. Now, you know what? They're gonna treat me differently. How can I go get this attention that I'm seeking? So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go break in somebody's house, or I'm gonna go steal a car. I'm gonna go do this, and I'm getting the attention now, but this ain't the attention that I'm really looking for. But hey, now mom's paying attention to me. Now my friends like me, or the kids in the neighborhood that giving me a pat on the back because I'm the cool person, because I'm doing all the stuff that's not cool though. And I don't see that in too many other communities. Like, I went to DeSmet High School, I went to magnet school since I was little, so I've been around other cultures pretty much my whole life, and I've never just sat there and seen at DeSmet a roasting session going on, and we just in the hallway picking apart each other's flaws and talking about each other. I never saw that. But if you go to Hazelwood East, where I went as well, we talking about each other. We our worst enemies. Like, we the ones putting each other down the most, and then you do it with a smile on your face, and it's like, oh, okay, this is what's supposed to be going on. It's cool. They just having fun. But at some point, when you're not mentally strong enough to understand that this is just fun, then you start to feel a certain type of way. That's where the depression and the anxiety comes in, and to where, oh, now we at the lunch table, I'm gonna duck my head down and try not to laugh too hard, because I know as soon as oh, what you laughing at? Oh, you? I know you ain't. And once that happens, now I can't even be myself, because now I gotta duck down and be scared of what somebody else is gonna say to me, because, and that goes like to adulthood as well. So now I have social anxiety. So now when there's too many people around, or people get to laughing too hard, or jokes get to going on, and it's like, yeah, let me back up a little bit, because I remember how this went down. And it's actually a thing called arrested emotional development. And that's when the mind stops to expand emotionally. So if you see a grown man that's 30 years old and he acts out like he's a 12-year-old, it's probably because he never got past that emotion when he was 12. So now, a perfect example for me, I never got stuff like, it was always in a black household, you did what you were supposed to do. So I make the honor roll, ain't no pat on the back, ice cream, go to get you did what you were supposed to do. I bring these F home though, it's gonna be a problem. You on punishment, whoopings, what do you say? Pull the pants down, it's going down. So now as an adult, I've never got past that, and we on the basketball court, and you saying something every time I make a turnover, but then I hit the game winning shot, and it's no congratulations there. Now I'm upset, and now I'm ready to fight you on this basketball court, not because of who you are, but because this takes me back to when mom never congratulated me. Mom never patted me on the back. And so this feels just like that. And that's where the mental health comes in at, to where you have to let your children know, I'm proud of you. You're doing good. Keep up the hard work. Even if you do bad, you're not bad. That was just a bad act, or that was a bad position that you were in. You did bad in that case. But you're still an awesome child. You're still great, and you can still do your best. So I feel like that's the best way to handle that.
Can I say something real quick? Because to what my brother McGee is saying, I've done leadership development work in corporate America at major corporations. And I think it's important to understand that what he just described happens in other communities. But the magnitude of which it happens in our community, it can't be quantified, right? Because I've sat in boardrooms of, multiple million-dollar operations, and the president of the company is dealing with 12-year-old emotions and not leading the team properly because he's overly emotional because somebody didn't pat him on the back when he was 12. That happens all across the country. In major organizations, you'll be surprised, people that are making major billion-dollar decisions are going through that. But it's happening in our community at a much higher rate. And I think that's important to understand, because somebody will bump what he's saying, like, oh, that happens in every community. This happens to this person, and then in the Asian community, in the white community. Yeah, but it's happening to us 10 times more, right? So I think it's important to understand that.
Gentlemen, thank you, Williams. All right, so next question, Mr. Boyd. You ready? Number 10. What are some examples of successful initiatives and programs that have helped Black men and youth access mental health services and support?
Okay, so just give a little background. So I am Dennis Boyd, and I am from the Northeast, and I grew up attending programs that helped me, that gave me a healthy outlet and a place to actually be an adolescent and to be a kid. I was affirmed, I was told that I was going to be, and so that kind of set the template and the model that I came from. My grandfather, my father, Ruben were the men who were the primary influences that helped really, that were the templates that I came from. And so working as an educational consultant in schools, I had started my own adolescent development program for young men. What I've seen successful are programs that allow, as already been discussed, spaces that allow young Black boys and young black girls to be young Black boys and young Black girls. So I've seen them in schools. You can look around, you'll see Father and Family Support Center, you'll see Big Brothers, Big Sisters. They come in a variety of expressions. And the ones that I've seen and or experienced that have been the most successful are the ones that allow Black boys and Black girls to be young black boys and young black girls. Here's what that looks like. An example. Brandy Nicole, this was 2010. She was in a program that I was running in her school. Brandy Nicole was 14 years old, had 2 younger siblings, and she came in, and she was really assertive for a 14-year-old. And I said, Brandy, you're talking to me like both of us are adults. She said, Mr. Boyd, I got adult responsibilities. And I said, oh, now I understand why she thinks she and I are peers. And I said, Brandy, here's what I need you to do. Because you have to be an adult in other aspects of your life, I need you to be the 14-year-old Brandy when you come in here. She said, Mr. Boyd, how can I do that when I have to leave here and go pick up my brothers and sisters? Brandy, that's a really good question. I said, but what I'm challenging you to do is allow me to love you as a 14-year-old. And here's what that's going to look like. That's going to look like you're going to make 14-year-old decisions. You're going to talk while I'm talking. I'm going to feel disrespected. But I'm going to forgive you and I'm going to pretend that it didn't happen because that's what 14-year-olds do. That's what I expect a 14-year-old to do. We're going to talk about it afterwards because I'm trying to figure out why you're disrespecting me because we've established that while you're talking, I will listen. While I'm talking, you'll listen. And successful programs create spaces for kids to be kids, but have standards, and they learn and teach the students and the young people how to negotiate maturation. When we hold them to a higher standard and we have an expectation for them, that's when the maturation begins to set in. Because now we're giving them something to strive towards, because we're saying, hey, you're 14 now. What you did at 13 is no longer acceptable. Baseline is here now. Right? So that looks like doing your chores. Successful programs reinforce what's happening at home, and they collaborate with families. So if I go to the coach and I say, hey, I need you to bench Dennis because his report card was not up to par, the coach is going to say, Dennis, how come you didn't show me your report card? How come you didn't tell me you needed help? So there's collaboration with the family. The program and families are not two separate entities. They're supposed to be collaborating in order for the students and the youth who are participating to be successful. Because if I know when I get to school, Dr. Davis is holding me accountable, Mr. Harold is holding me accountable, and my mother's dropping me off and she's looking at them and they giving her the eye like everything is okay, and mom says no, Mr. Harold's going to have a conversation with me at some point during the day. Dr. Davis is going to have a conversation with me at some point during the day. It inspires me. I don't want to hear from none of y'all unless I'm doing well. Which means that when they're doing well, we celebrate them at home and in the programs that they're in so that they're getting this ecological approach and everything is being reinforced in every program or every place that you have your kids. For parents, I encourage and implore that you place your children in programs that you carefully vet, that we have values that are at least have some overlap in the areas that are most important, right? So if we don't steal and we don't talk about these things, putting your child in a program that is contrary or runs perpendicular to that, you increase the risk of exposing your kids to things that you wouldn't ordinarily expose them to. But programs and families, schools, there should be this accountability and this mutual support to include that leads to the success that we want to see in our kids. But those are the programs that I've seen that have the most successful outputs, especially around mental health, because when you're allowing kids to be kids, you're supporting their emotional and psychological and developmental health. So allowing a kid the space to cry and say, you know what, you might not want to talk about it now, but when you finish, I'm here for you, right? And that teaches them, I need to go regularly, as been discussed. I need that space to be a man, a young man who's learning how to manage these emotions. And then I have a safe adult that I can go talk to. Not my peer who doesn't have the skills, but a healthy adult. So those are the programs that I've seen that are successful. Thank you.
I just wanted to piggyback off of something Mr. Smith said when he was speaking. When we're talking about our kids, I feel like we start with the examples as well. Like, this might not be a popular thing, but as parents, we have to be wrong in front of our kids. Like, it's okay. And, you know, it might be a different cultural stigma, whatever. Apologize. I can't tell you one time when my mama was wrong in my 32 years of life that she was like, oh, you know what? I was wrong. You right. Never heard. It's just like, oh, okay. Oh, well, you know what? Oh, this is, oh, whatever. And going about it now, it's like my opinions or my thoughts, like that stuff don't even matter. And so now as an adult, I don't even know how to apologize sometimes because it's just like, oh, in my family, all we did was just move past it and now you come crack a joke with me and then everything back all good. But really, I'm upset because like you was wrong and I got in trouble for you being wrong. You didn't get punished and nothing happened. Like you was just wrong and it is what it is. And that's how a lot of us operate as men. Like, I was wrong. It is what it is. And we're gonna move forward about it. And I'll call you in a couple weeks or a couple days and we're gonna be cool. And that's not healthy for you mentally, really, because it's like you're holding on to those things and other people hold on to those things as well. So, and if you think I'm lying, my son right there in the front row, I didn't apologize to him before, told him I'm wrong. I asked him questions as well, like, is it something that I do that you don't like? And if that's the case, like one of the things that I do, he said I talk too much. He don't like when we have long talks. A lot of people would be upset with their kid if they tell them they're like, you talk too much. But instead, you know what? I want you to be the best person that you can be. So since I talk too much or you don't like the long talks, let me figure out how I can get you this same information in a short span to where now you still get the information, I still get to say what I wanted to say, and everybody's happy. But instead, if I sit here and I talk to you for 30 minutes in the corner and you just sitting over there on the side and doing all that, you probably ain't heard nothing that I said because you stopped listening at minute number 2 and we on minute number 30. Like, so I wasted my breath. Now I'm upset because you not listening. Now you in trouble because you wasn't listening. Now we're not going to get that ice cream. We're going back home and don't touch that game when you get there. And all because I didn't listen to him or treat him like he was a human. Like, a lot of us treat our kids like, oh, you just a kid. Do what I say, not what I do. All this, no, you a human being, you got feelings and emotions too, and I'm gonna let you express that. And it's not a white thing or nothing like that. You ain't gonna flip out and do all that extra stuff, but you can let me know, like, Dad, I ain't like that. You was tripping, okay? All right, we can talk about it. Just be respectful.
Plus one. Hey man, you didn't get permission to talk about it, man. All right. I do want to say this though, because obviously we're talking and then we're getting some good stuff. I know you may be looking at the clocks like, man, they say that 10:10 we supposed to be in the breakout session. I'm the firm believer, man, is when there's energy, you go with that energy kind of deal. And then we still have people walking in that may have to get something that they may not have gotten earlier. And so as we continue these conversations, this is what it's about. It's a conversation. This is life. Like literally, this is life. Like some of you all probably agreeing with everything that's being said up here. And that's confirmation for something that you may have wanted confirmation for and it just hit you. I will say this is some good stuff. So this next question for Kerry Davis and Brandon Williams. What role can mentors and role models play in guiding Black men and youth through their mental health challenges? What role can mentors and role models play in guiding Black men and youth through their mental health challenges? Can y'all hear me? Is this working? Yep. Go.
Check. All right. So, as they told you all, I do radio, but I also coach. I'm a head coach at Hazelwood Central. Been there for 6 years. And as a head coach, our job is, my man Shane, our job is to be mentors, be role models. But what I've learned in my entire time of being a coach, mentoring young men, is it really starts at home. Like everything we do should be in addition to. It should be in addition to what the values that they're learning at home, the things that they're being taught at home, and how they're being treated and trained to be young men, good young women at home. And then we add to it. So every person here, you know, you all made the decision to get up 7 a.m., 8 a.m., drive to McClure, bring your kids, didn't bring your kids, whatever it is, to listen to what we were talking about. But every person in here has somebody that should be in here with them. Maybe you should have, maybe you called them and said, hey, let's go. I don't want to go. But you know their kids bad as hell. Like, for real. You know they are. I deal with some bad kids. And so, not all of them have bad or have bad parents. Some of them get to school, and I was just talking to Howard Brown, head coach here, on my way in. And it's like when they get up at 7 a.m., they put on a costume and they become actors. And then when they leave to go home at 3:30, they take that costume off and they are who they are at home in front of their parents. And they wake up every single day and play this character. And some of y'all parents don't know. They have no clue. I had a situation just 2 weeks ago where a kid came in and I said, man, you don't know who your son is. You have no clue who your child is. And then we sat there for 45 minutes and she listened to her child talk in a manner in which she had never heard. And she said, I don't know. I said, well, this is how he is every single day. And I've had that conversation with multiple parents. And so for me as a mentor, my job is to make sure your child is going in the right direction. Add on to his life or her life in any positive way that I can. Make sure I keep implementing those details and those values that you instill in them at home. But if they're not getting that at home, well, what the hell do you think they're coming to the mentors to get? We are not magic workers. We can't change something overnight when they're getting more of what they're getting at home than they are with mentors. So for me, you know, I feel like there's a large value of what mentors can do. I grew up in a single parent household. My coaches, literally, I was with my coach's family more than I was with my own father. Like I every single day, coming to pick me up, take me down to wherever, Woles or Dickey or Herbert Hoover, or wherever we had to go, every single day. But the values that my mother instilled in me, I knew damn well if I left that house and didn't act accordingly, it was not gonna be good when I got home. And if my coaches did not give her a good report of how I was, it was not going to be good when I got home. So as a mentor that really loves and provides and helps, that's what we want to do. That's what I want to do. I speak for myself. I love helping young men. We started having, in the off season, we started having Wednesdays where we'll lift. We normally do study hall, so we'll lift for an hour and a half, and then we'll do study hall for an hour and a half. But on Wednesdays, we would lift for an hour and a half, and then we would have just breakout sessions like this. And you'll have 45, 50 young black men talking about the things that we need to talk about young girls, about young ladies, about, you know, how to protect yourself in certain situations. What do you do when your mother does not reaffirm the wonderful things that you've done today? How do you act when somebody in your family is dealing with an illness, when they're about to pass and you don't know how to react or respond? How do you deal with conflict? And all of those things should be conversations that you have with your children at home. I tell my son all the time, my son right there, I tell him all the time, hey man, you're a human, you can cry. If something happened, you fall down, hurt your arm, you know, something happened in school, your feelings hurt, you can cry. Now what we're not gonna do is cry because you didn't get a video game, you better get the hell out of my face. We're not crying for that. We're not crying because you didn't get your way. But if you hurt physically, emotionally, all right, go ahead, get it out. Now let's talk. I grew up in a household where my mother told me real men don't cry. She not a man. How she know? She ain't never been a man. But that was instilled in me. Don't cry, anybody that grew up in the 60s, 70s, 80s know what it means. Your son gonna be a punk, right? Yeah, what that mean? He gonna be soft as hell. You ain't raising no punk. You ain't crying. That's nonsense. Because everybody in here is a human. And those things are learned. You go to therapy, you learn those things, you find a good therapist or have conversations with people that have emotional intelligence and can have real conversations with you. Every man in here done cried whether or not they'll admit to it or wanted to. Now you might go in a dark room in a corner in the back of the alley and be the hell away from everybody in your family, but you done let the tears out because you're a human, right? It's natural. It ain't fake. It don't make you soft. It makes you a human being. But to get up and get on and go on with your life and learn and how to process that, is what makes us men and what helps young boys become great men.
Yeah, I mean, just everything that you know, in regards to mentorship, it's really two things that I think about, and that's availability and accountability. And everything that Kerry just described is rolled into those two words. Because in order to be a mentor, a mentor and mentee relationship is really a push-pull. A mentor can't be the one that's always calling you, texting you, trying to find you and figure out what's going on with you. A mentee has to reach out as well. It has to be a relationship that goes back and forth. But being available and being present is something that's extremely important, because when they call you, you do need to be available. You do need to be able to show up. And as a father, you know, God is good. That's all I'm gonna say, because as a father of a blended family, I have a bonus son who's my oldest son, and he's here with me today. He tends to, and I see him walking back now, but he tends to be in spaces where he can get poured into, but he goes and sits in the corner, he goes and hides himself. And so I was hoping that when we started really talking that he would walk out here, and he actually did walk out here. So I know God is real. But then there's that accountability portion. And we talked about that blend of having authority, but also having authority with love. And that's something that I think is so important in a mentor relationship, because I had many mentors when I was growing up, but I was also a young man who was seeked out mentors, who was looking for someone who could pour into me, someone who could connect with me, and really, I had uncles. I had a father, of course. Love my father. He wasn't always available though. He gave me the wisdom that he could give me when I was with him, but he wasn't always available for every moment that I needed. And I had uncles that were always available. I had coaches that were always available. And so those were important things, but the one thing they did was hold me accountable to who I said I wanted to be and what the standard that my mother and my family had set. And so being available and being able to hold kids accountable with grace, with love, is extremely important.
Real quick before I pass the mic, because I know our time is changing. One thing I want to mention, pay attention to your kids. I can tell you story after story, but I have two daughters, and one time when they were she was probably 8 years old, I noticed I was out of town on business. I came back and she was walking funny. And I noticed she wasn't using one of her arms. And so I was like, what's going on? And so her mom sent her to her sister's house to play with her little cousin. I took her to my orthopedic surgeon, fractured clavicle. They got them kids jumping off bunk beds, doing all kind of dumb stuff. So she had a broken bone. Another time, another daughter went over there, same crew, something else happened. So I had to make a decision. You can't go over there no more, ever. Gotta take the kids out of that situation. The other thing, my daughters growing up, they were the life of the party. She was involved in everything. I go pick them up from daycare, they're running across the room. She started high school during COVID. That was tough. My man mentioned something about anxiety. I noticed she hadn't talked to her friends in about 4 or 5 months. She was just in her room, doing what she was doing. That's not her. So I had to figure out what's going on. We put her in therapy. Senior in high school, 4.2 GPA, 180. But you have to pay attention. We got her on anxiety medicine about 3 months ago. Made a big difference. We had to increase it because she tested out of the scale when it came to childhood anxiety. So we had to increase her medication, but She now admits, I feel better. I can be around people, I can do stuff. So you have to pay attention to your kids. And the second thing is, in order for us to teach them, we have to find out what motivates them. And that's not just kids, that's anybody. What motivates people that we hang around to want to hang around you, we work with, or anything. If you don't like somebody you work with, what is it about them? So don't do the thing that they want to be around you for so that they don't have to be around you. But the same thing works with the kids. When we try to discipline them, again, we can all tell the stories. We go through the same thing. We spank, we yell, we do all that stuff. Again, as you all see these letters on my chest, I was raised in a fraternity for 30 plus years. Unlike what you hear in the public, we're a non-hazing organization, but we figure out what motivates individuals. I did the same thing with my daughters. Spankings didn't work on her. Nothing worked. So one day I said, if you keep doing this, I'm taking away karate. She started crying like I'd never seen before. I found it. So now I know what she loves, know what she likes. So in order to be rewarded with these things, you have to do this. My dad did the same thing with me. I got into high school, got the grades, good stuff. I was a clown, as y'all can tell. I'm the same. But I acted up. My grades were great, but citizenship, I was the dude and laughing. They moved my desk in the hallway. They called me the mayor of the hall. It was bad. So my father, again, he's like, look, I can't be getting calls about your behavior. So you keep it up, taking away football. Man, I got straight in the arrow. You ain't taking away from football. Anything else you can have. You can have video games and all that. I gotta play sports. So I had to change because you had to figure out what motivates the kids. So just pay attention to them, figure out what their motivators are. That's how we get them to move directions we want them to move.
Hey, going back to what Kerry said earlier, you said role models start at home. Sometimes we can't get them at home. I'm an only child. I was raised with all females in East St. Louis. Coming up like that, my parents were well off. My mother's an engineer for General Motors. My grandmother owned Chinese restaurants. We were well off coming up to be a resident of East St. Louis. But I'm in a household full of women. What can they tell me? What can they teach me? I need a man around. So the role modeling didn't start at home with me. So that's what put me in the streets, to find a male role model out there. And I started getting older and looking around, and now I do a lot of mentorship right now. The re-entry program for St. Louis County Jail, and I do the Southern Illinois Federal Courts their orientation. Because of my background, they respect where I came from, what I'm doing now. And I tell a lot of the kids all the time, I didn't have a role model growing up. I didn't have anybody that I wanted to be like, but I had a lot of people that I did want to be like. And that's what I look at right now. If you don't have a role model, look at some of the stuff that's going on out there now. There's a lot of stuff out there you don't want to be like. And that role model sometimes comes afterwards. Now, they do a lot of stuff within the schools. I work after the schools. Me coming through prison twice, and now I'm a successful entrepreneur of $1 million business. And it took me 40, 45 years to get there, which is sad, but God works in mysterious ways, and it still happened. Right now, Pure Living, Recovery, and Rehabilitation. I'm a certified alcohol and drug counselor. I have a 50-bed facility that I'm building right now in East St. Louis. 90-day program, because I've gone through those programs. Like I said, coming up to the streets of East St. Louis, I came up with a crack era where we played. And that playing, it became trouble. Landed me in prison at 24 for murder. Again, at a later age, white collar crime. I learned walking through those doors with small sentences like I had because I was blessed and God had another purpose for my life. I walk in, hey, what you in here for? When you coming home? I got 70 years. What you in here for? When you going home? I'm never going home. I sat back right there and said, I like to eat good, and I like women, and I like driving cars. You can't do none of that in here. And these guys around are dead serious. One of the guys that told me he was never going home was 17 years old. Never going home. That scared me right there. I said, I want to be home for my daughter. I want to be able to raise her. I had 2 grandkids now that were born last year and the year before. I would have missed all that with the road that I was going down. Now, sometimes you can't catch them in school. I
I'll catch them afterwards. The young adults, the older adults who want to learn entrepreneurship, lessen poverty, and do other things in life. That's the role model that a lot of them need. After school, after high school, while they're still in high school, a man around. That's what's gonna get it for a lot of them.
So we have come to the conclusion of our panel discussion. I wish we had a week to do this because it's so much to unpack. Again, I'm so happy for every gentleman on here represented. Go ahead, one more time, give these gentlemen a hand. All right, so like I said, like he said, this is the conclusion of this portion of our event. Now we're going to go into our breakout sessions. If you have a program, obviously times are going to be modified. However, there are going to be more in-depth conversations going on in these breakout rooms.